Welcome to today's webinar. This is the replacement costs for the B&B insurance. With me, my name is Rose Mape, and I'm the director of the Pennsylvania Association Bed and Breakfast Inns. With us today is Michael Connolly, who is the Bed and Breakfast Program Director at Heist Insurance Agency. This insurance program was started in 1991 by the Connolly family to better meet all the needs of the B&B owner. Currently, there are over 100 inns in the program located across the Mid-Atlantic area. Mike lives in New Jersey with his wife and two daughters. In his spare time, Mike enjoys yoga and cooking. So with that, I'll turn the program over to Michael.
So thanks so much, everyone, for taking some time to connect with everybody, to have a discussion, to talk about really I've been selling bed and breakfast insurance for a long time, since 1995, and really, like, what the common theme is that you guys fell in love really with an idea. You fell in love with maybe a lifestyle, and you fell in love with really a property. And so throughout this little presentation, and we're not going to be too long here, because at the end of the day, it is an insurance topic. So we don't want people to fall asleep. But really, the main topic is replacement cost and how to value your inn from a standpoint where you have enough insurance in your program in case of a catastrophic loss or even a partial loss. So John's got the slide up about me. I'm a South Jersey guy. I've been doing this really my whole life. I grew up in the insurance industry. My mom and dad started the program, and really that came about because my parents moved to Cape May when I was in college, and they discovered really that there was a need and a niche for innkeepers insurance, and they fell in love with Cape May. And actually, at one point, they even talked about opening an inn, and it's actually kind of a down the road goal of mine. So I've kind of got this in my blood right now. I also teach yoga. I'm involved in a restaurant. I've got two great daughters, Shane and Maeve, and I've got a big giant lab called Norman. So that's me. So John, let's go to the next slide. Okay, so like I said, we're gonna really discuss on this first slide, this first type of valuation, which is replacement cost. There's a couple different other forms for how you can value that. I really want to stick to replacement costs and how it pertains to your inn. Go ahead, John. So replacement cost is a cost to repair or replace a building with materials of the same or comparable quality. Includes amount needed to hire the contractors and purchase material, and land is not a factor. Now, John, actually, can you back up one slide? So what replacement cost is not, and I'd say the main kind of misconception, and if you guys know this, great. If not, it's new information. Replacement cost is not your assessed value. It is not your retail value. It is also not even the price of how much you bought your inn. So like right now, as the housing market is increasing, we'll see this from time to time. So you go get a loan from a bank, and remember, the bank is only really interested in their interest. In other words, what their exposure is. They're going to tell you to insure to a certain value to match the loan. Now, we're going to get into this today on how to value your inn from a replacement cost standpoint, but it's just a really good idea to understand that your value is based on a formula that we use in insurance, and we're going to go over that value. Yeah, John, next slide. Actually, back up one. So, Marie, can I ask you a question about the property that you're looking at? Yeah, oh, there you go. So can you just share with me and the group, like why, tell me the brief story on how you found the property.
Okay, the short is we've been looking for an old property for a very, very long time. We stumbled upon this after looking at a different property down the street. It was partially abandoned. It was not lived in. Owners were out of state, found out that they had died in the process, and we were lucky enough to buy the property. It needed a lot of work. My husband is also a contractor, so
Oh, boy. That's
so
good.
just FYI for you. And my question to you is, how does this, and you can cover this in private if you'd like, but how does replacement cost deal with what is happening with the cost of materials in the industry right now?
Yeah, that's a great question. And Marie, can I ask you this too? What would you say is like the driving characteristic of why you purchased the property?
Well, two things. It fit the historical bill, and it is a private 8 acres along a world-class trout stream.
Beautiful. That sounds amazing. Yeah, see, I see, Lori, you're nodding your head. So you've been in the business for what, you said 13 years? And so,
Yeah,
so what, it sounded like I saw you kind of nod your head. Marie's story is relatable to you?
just to, just the love of the property. I
Yeah.
don't have 8 acres, thank God, but just yeah.
And so Lori, what do you think is the driving characteristic that kind of led you to pull the trigger on the building that you're in?
We actually didn't search for very long. It sort of fell into my lap, but location was the biggest piece for me.
Okay.
We're literally 3 blocks from Westchester University and just a mile from our downtown, just north of Longwood Gardens. So it's a big attraction type area.
Okay, great. Yeah, and so what Marie and Lori are talking about, and I'm sure everyone really on this call has some kind of a story on how really you fell in love with a building. You fell in love with an area. You fell in love with certain traits of the town, maybe the people. And so in many ways, I see, it's a very common story for innkeepers, in that what's unique about it being an innkeeper, among many things, is really, again, is that you fell in love with an idea, and you fell in love with a lifestyle, and you fell in love with a building. Now, many of you that have been doing this a long time might kind of chuckle with the lifestyle, because I know it's really hard work, and sometimes you just don't feel like being hospitable. It's kind of like the joke with the industry, but really, so John, let's go to the next slide. We're going to kind of tie in what Marie and Lori are talking about. Okay, so this slide, it just kind of tells you real simply that the cost of construction, and Marie, this is going to touch on your point. So the formula, let's go to the formula page, John. Where is that? I think it's slide. Do you have that formula?
This is the formula page. You
Okay.
take the square footage time
Yeah.
and cost to give you your.
So the basic formula for replacement cost is your square feet times the current rate of construction, and that equals your replacement cost. And again, keep in mind, the replacement cost is not your retail value. It's not what you bought it for. It's not your neighbors. It's not your tax assessment limit. So in this case, we're using a smaller inn of 2,000 square feet, and on the low end, you can see we're at $200 a square foot. And on the high end, although this is pretty rare, this is for a pretty opulent building, it goes to $500. So for our purposes now, just to make the math easy, on the low end, and this is really the extreme low end, we're seeing replacement cost limit that starts out at $200. So basically, if you have a 2,000 square foot inn times $200, that equals a $400,000 replacement cost. Now, to touch on what Marie's spoken about, and I don't want to spend too much time on this, but it's important because it's part of this conversation. So the current rate of construction right now, really particularly if we look at raw materials like lumber. So what's amazing with lumber right now, it is almost tripled in cost. And so what that means is, I just read an article last night about this. Your average home build right now has an increased cost of $16,000 just for lumber. So another example would be 2 years ago, if you wanted to put a deck on the back of your inn, right now that same deck would be 30 to 40% more money, and that is directly related to the cost of lumber right now. So it's important to remember that the formula again is square feet times the current rate of construction. So that current rate of construction number, it really fluctuates. It follows the market. It follows disasters. Like all these materials go up and down. So what we tell our clients is we want to have enough, money in this bucket of insurance in the event of a catastrophic loss. And so what we do is we do a physical inspection. We also have some software. I consult with some contractors really in all different areas of the East Coast or the country to help zero in on this number. So I can tell you right now, kind of the average cost right now, really in South Jersey, is really closer to the $300 mark. And it's because of the cost of lumber and raw materials. So you want to keep that number in mind. Now, by the way, that number can change. So you're not married to this number. So in the event that materials go down, we can revisit that, in your next renewal season and make an adjustment. What I tell people is what we're going for with this is accuracy. That's it. It's not to drive your insurance costs up. It's not to, kind of pad our stats. It's really just to make sure you guys have enough, money like in your bucket. So Marie, do you happen to know the approximate square foot of your physical structure?
We are probably close to about 2,500 square feet. We're not large.
Okay. So yeah, so if we just kind of use this basic math, so if we use the $300 mark and we do 2,500,
I'll do it, Mikey.
what's that math?
What do you want me to use? What construction cost?
Yeah, $300.
750,000.
So Marie, that's a good place to start. Now I say it's a good place to start because, especially in your situation, if you're rehabbing an inn, you're going to know these costs right now, and with your husband in the business, you have an advantage. So that example is if you guys decide to put in a lot of granite or a lot of expensive trim or stained glass or anything that's permanently attached to the structure, really that's more costly than your average home. A lot of inns do some really nice fireplaces with some really nice mantles, and they do, they spend a lot of time and money on the wood flooring, and of course doors. Doors are outrageously expensive now, and especially for an inn. Like a good inn has really solid doors, and they can be $800-900 a door. And if you've got 15 rooms, all this stuff adds up and it increases your replacement cost. And again, the value of getting into this and understanding it is I sometimes the mistake is made where someone will call and say, "Oh, I only need 600,000 because that's my loan." Or they're going to say, and this is true, especially 2 years ago, when the real estate market is down, it can also throw off the replacement cost number, because a lot of people attach that retail value to what their insurance needs are. And really, as you guys can see, the real story is what's my square feet and how much is it to rebuild it? That's it. So, all right. So John, let's go to actually, before we do that, does anyone have any questions or anyone want to talk about, their in? Are you guys aware, Lori, you can just nod your head. Do you know your replacement cost number?
I mean, I just did the math. I'm 7,200 square feet. So if I look at 300, I'm looking at about 2.1 million.
Mhm.
I guess my question to you is, let's just say I was going to sell the inn. Does this have anything to do with that value?
No.
Okay.
No, it doesn't. And it's because, gosh forbid, Lori, your inn would burn to the ground. how much would it be to rebuild it so you can sell it? And again, what's interesting right now is, and I'm not sure about your real estate values, where you guys live, but I can tell you locally, the real estate values are up about 30% across the board. So if I hear that an innkeeper wants to sell, we have a conversation around what you think, you can absorb. Because at the end of the day, guys, like no one's really gonna, and we're gonna get into that. There is a penalty with replacement costs, and we're gonna get into that. But we work with innkeepers and business owners that say, look, I know my replacement cost should be 2.1 million. However, I know that's going to drive up my insurance costs. What can we do? So we can always get, let's just say, creative. We can always find another way to insure you. However, that number, your replacement cost number, that baseline is it's just you got to know that number. Again, you're in your building, like you fell in love with it. It's your greatest asset as an innkeeper. Like that's your business. Your business is your property. And so what I tell people is, and John and I do a good job at this. It's like, okay, maybe you're not so much concerned about your contents. Maybe you're not incredibly worried about maybe some of your antiques. So maybe you want to shift some of those insurance dollars over to your building. So it's really a conversation. And we don't want to, what we don't want to do is kind of scare people into buying more insurance. It's just at the end of the day, you have to have enough money in your program in case something happens. And I can tell you, a lot of times, if we go up a couple $100,000 in a building limit, it doesn't impact the premium like in a massive way. Usually more often than not, some people are surprised and they'll take an extra 200,000 to get the replacement cost up, and it might add a couple $100 to their premium. So it's always worth going through the quoting process, and really you can work with your agent on this. Your agent can come out, they can measure, they can take pictures, they can also call, some local contractors. They can call Marie's husband perhaps, just to get an idea of, what the replacement cost area is in your area. So that's the formula. Does anyone have any questions with the formula?
So I have a question, Mike.
Okay.
This is Sally at the Manor on Front.
Hey,
So-
Sally.
We happen to have two huge mansions side by side. Both of them are our bed and breakfast. The second one, we're in the process of renovating, hoping to have that up and running here by June, July. But each of our mansions are over 7,000 square feet each.
Okay.
Each of them were built back in the 20s with stone that you can't get anymore, Would we be looking at 14,000 square foot at $500 construction? Ouch. Yeah, I'm sure you guys would love that, right?
Well, and again, that's and I get your point, but really the goal, Sally, is to ensure your exposures. So without seeing your in, it's obviously hard for me to kind of put a number on it. But to your point, yeah, like the formula, it's what the insurance company uses. It's what really builders use. So we have to if we take our insurance hat off and we put our builder's hat on, we can figure out what your replacement cost number is. Now, you bring up something that I can touch on briefly. John, can you go to slide, hold on, the functional replacement, slide 7. Okay, so there's another component of replacement cost, and then the formula is the same, by the way, okay? The difference is this valuation is called functional replacement cost. So it's the cost to repair or replace a functionally equivalent building using lower cost materials while retaining the original functionality of the property. So Sally, you had mentioned that you've got some stone that you just can't get anymore, correct?
You're right. It'd
Okay.
be difficult.
Yeah. And so another way to value this is to use this functional replacement cost. And I'll give you an example that might fit you. All right. So you've got 14,000 square feet and it sounds like you have a beautiful inn. So right out of the gate, I think I'm going to use probably the $300, limit. However, what we can do is take a look at some of your building materials and say, okay, we're not going to redo these walls in these stones. However, we want to use stone. And right now you can get some really nice prefab kind of stone looking materials that aren't actually stone. They're actually made out of concrete, that now we can go to the insurance company and say, hey, Sally's not going to use this kind of wood or these stones or some other things that are really expensive. She's willing to use some lesser quality things, but still maintain, and this is the important part, the original functionality of the property. So Sally, if you have a catastrophic loss and you want to maintain really the look and the feel of your inn, you can do that. And we don't have to use such a high number if you agree to use this functional replacement cost style of policy. Does that make sense, Sally?
Yes. And my husband just popped his head in, and he was from the construction world for 40 plus years. So he's shaking his head yes also. So
Great. Yeah. And so, and really, guys, the big takeaway that I want you to have when you leave here in about 15 minutes is to have an understanding that there is a formula, right? And it's being applied to your property, whether you know it or not. And my suggestion is that you have at least a base understanding that hopefully you walk away with today, and that also you engage your agent. Now, of course, I'd like to come out and meet you and talk to you and go over this and get an opportunity to quote your business. But honestly, I also understand that people have a relationship with their agent, and we respect that at Heist Insurance. So I want you to also use this as a resource. So if if your agent's your friend and they do a good job, that's great. Ask them to do a replacement cost survey on your property, and they're going to be happy to do it, because you really have to understand these numbers that way. And I've seen this a couple times, in my career, where I've had a innkeeper or a business owner kind of talk me into a lower limit, and then sure enough, a fire occurs. And that's not a good conversation. It's not a fun thing to go through. Now, on the other hand, fortunately at the agency, we've been on some other claims where we've had the appropriate amount of coverage, the building was restored, and the customer was thrilled. So, insurance is a what if type of business. And again, we don't do this to scare people, but you have to be prepared really for a catastrophic loss. And step one in getting there is understanding your building's replacement cost. So it was a great question, Sally. Thank you.
Thank you.
John, let's get into, we're going to go to the co-insurance part, because I want you guys to understand that this is also an important aspect. John, I think it's slide 11. Oh, there you go. Okay, so replacement cost, part of the formula is that there's something called a co-insurance penalty. All right, and so most insurance policies require you to be insured at 80 or 90%. I think we're going to use the 90% as our example here. So in layman's terms, you can't be underinsured in your building and then have a partial loss. Let's say you have a kitchen fire, and then get 100% of that loss. So John, let's go to the example screen, or actually the next slide here. Yeah, why don't I go over to slide 12? Sorry. Understanding co-insurance.
Is that it?
Slide 12, so back up.
There it is.
Okay. Underinsuring a property gives an inaccurate picture of the financial risk an insurance company assumes under the policy. This can lead to underfunding a potential losses, putting the insurance company at a financial risk. Funding must be held by the insurance company to potentially pay for a total loss, even though most losses are smaller and partial. Now, that's important to understand. And it's kind of like common sense. More often than not, if you have a fire, the fire company's going to come put it out. So again, kitchen fire is something that we see often. So in a kitchen fire scenario, John, let's go ahead and go to the formula. Let's actually go to the example because it shows it, okay? So this is an illustration on how coinsurance can impact you. So the property replacement cost is $500,000 with a 90% coinsurance clause and $1,000 deductible. Insurance limit that really the insured picked or the agent is $425,000. The loss occurred resulting in damage of $200,000. So the formula for coinsurance is basically you take your what is required and you divide it by what you have, and that's going to tell you how much underinsured you are. So in
Did
this
over
case,
should.
what's that?
What you did over should times the loss.
Right.
So what you
Yeah,
did
so-
insure it over what you should have insured it.
So yeah, so John, if you will, I think you're kind of a little bit better at this. Walk through this example.
Hi, everybody. I'm John Heist. I work with Mike in the B&B program. I'm sorry I didn't introduce myself earlier. So in this example, as Mikey said, yes, 500,000 is the replacement cost for the structure that would pay to replace the property in the event of a loss. Now it seems that 425 was chosen, and it usually is by the insurance agent. It is a conversation between the innkeeper and the agent, but sometimes the agent feels a little bit in the stomach. Oh, I don't like the price going up. I'm feeling a little pressure. Maybe if I drop the building limit, they'll like me a little bit more. The price will go down. Everybody be happy. Well, the insurance agent isn't thinking about the 90% coinsurance. So if you have a 90% coinsurance clause in your policy, you have to carry at least 450,000. If you don't, you will have a penalty at the time of a partial claim.
Yeah.
So in this situation, the agent chose 425,000. It should have been 450,000. You're multiplying that times the time of loss, times the loss of 200,000. Now you're minusing your deductible, and now you're getting a check for 187,000.
Yeah.
Now you're
good
saying,
job.
I have a deductible. Why am I getting penalized $13,000? Why is that? Well, you didn't insure your building high enough. Well, you chose my limit, Mr. Agent. So now you're having this conversation as to where's that 13 grand coming from? Thank you.
So guys, this is also something to look at look at your policy, see what your co-insurance penalty is. Because again, the likelihood of you having a total loss versus a partial loss, you're more likely to have a partial loss. So co-insurance really kicks in during that partial loss scenario that John went over. So I'd say to even make this more an extreme example, right? Let's say your replacement cost limit is supposed to be $1 million and you have $500,000. So you have 50% insured to value. If you have a $200,000 kitchen fire, what are they going to give you? They're going to give you 100,000. So, and really is that the insurance company, and believe me, I'm not defending the insurance company. We work for you guys, but it's just the insurance company cannot make you whole if you're not paying at least 90% of the building value. You can't get 100% of a partial loss if you're not buying enough insurance. Does that make sense? Unfortunately, it does, right? So it's another key component to really understanding replacement costs and how it relates to your building. So Sally, like back to your example, with all your kind of intricate building materials, you want to have a conversation with your insurance agent and really your insurance company. That way everyone understands what your value is and what you guys all can agree upon prior to buying the insurance. So that kind of conversation can happen, and it's an important, really important conversation to have with your agent, because at the end of the day, what you don't want to have happen is to wind up in court with your insurance agent or your insurance company because really nobody pointed this out to you. So it's worth some time. And again, you guys can use me as a resource. You can ask me any question. And again, remember, even if you've got a good relationship with your agent, we respect that. We're not trying to butt anyone out of the way here. we're in business to make money, but at the same time, use us as a resource. So does anyone have any questions on co-insurance? I know it's there's a lot of math here on St. Patrick's Day, but does anyone have any questions? You good? You guys are co-insurance masters now? All right. All right,
All right,
John.
here's the quiz. Go to www.insurancequiz.com.
All right, John, let's go to the marketplace. Let's go to the hard and soft market. Okay. So another thing we wanted to have you guys walk away with is to get a really picture right now of what the insurance marketplace is. So right now, we've really swung into what's called a hard market. And a hard market's just, it's a kind of a nice way to say that prices are going up. And so what happens during a hard market is stricter underwriting standards, reduced capacity, fewer competitors, higher premium, restricted coverage. So for years, we were really in a soft market where prices were at least stabilized. There was some competition in the marketplace. Coverages were often thrown in by underwriters and insurance companies. And really the whole insurance process was a little bit easier. Now, I can tell you that here's a little kind of like insider kind of secret. Insurance companies, they don't make any money, believe it or not, off of premium. So the premiums you guys pay, what happens to that is they take your money and they invest it. That's how insurance companies make money. If we look at the profit and loss statement of an insurance company, most people are really surprised is that the actual insurance business is normally a loss or a little bit of a profit. Now, health insurance isn't like that. Auto insurance also is a little bit skewed, but I can tell you on the property and the casualty side, and especially the workers' comp, the premium does not make them money. They take your money and they put it in the stock market. So what's happening right now? There's a lot of things that are impacting the insurance market. And so insurance people, especially kind of in the higher up positions, they're basically actuaries, right? And they're also investment actuaries. So what are they doing? They're trying to predict the stock market. So there's a lot of conversation right now in the insurance industry that the speculation is that the stock market is going to go down. When an insurance company has fear of the stock market going down, what do? They unfairly increase premium. And they also, in my opinion, really unfairly make it more restrictive. And that's really what's happening now. And so what we're doing at the Heist Agency with myself and John and Tom Heist and some other people is to be an advocate, really just not just for bed and breakfast, but really for small business, because it's my personal opinion that small business is kind of bearing a brunt here of some increases that are unfair. And so what we do is, because we have a fairly large book of business, especially with the bed and breakfast market, is we try to leverage that. Quite frankly, we try to find more companies and we say, look, we're going to take all these ins, we're going to move them over to you guys, but I need really solid pricing. I need increased coverage. I need an ease of doing business. And really, it makes my life easier as well. So from a premium standpoint, remember that, a good agent should be your advocate. And at the same time, it's a really tough market right now. It just really is. So if we look at real estate values are going up, building materials are going up, well, so too are insurance costs. So I would say there's a hard market kind of mentality, not just in insurance, but it's in business everywhere. So it's just something to kind of keep in the back of your head, and that really what you guys can do. John, let's go to the next one where there's some suggestions.
Let me touch on this for 5
Yeah,
seconds.
sure. Go
Mike.
ahead, buddy. Yep.
One of the, in the hard market, the restricted coverage, it doesn't sound like, because in business, we have a family business, and we're getting smacked around like everyone. And so when you're thinking about putting your coverage, you're renewing your coverage for your in, this restricted coverage could could affect you in a way that you never thought about because you keep thinking price, price, price. Oh, of course I'll be able to get my coverage on this. I've always been able to get coverage on this. Well, one of the examples is umbrellas right now. That's additional liability for your inn or your B&B. That's hard to get right now because $1 million doesn't go where $1 million used to go. So now $1 million umbrella, the prices are going up into these umbrellas. And in some places, it's hard to get an umbrella. So I just wanted to give you an example of restricted coverage because we're always thinking price, price, price. But I want you to keep your eye on coverage, coverage, coverage. Am I getting the coverage that I had last year? Thank you.
Yeah, and really, guys, it's kind of back to what I was talking about before. Our job is to point out some exposures and to offer some products that fit those exposures. But by no means is anyone going to hold a gun to your head and say you have to do things this way. There's always a way to get creative with your coverage and therefore lower your premiums. It's just what I like to remind people is let's approach that from a knowledge base. And so there's an understanding that you're taking some risk. It's okay to take risk as long as you're aware of it. So in John's example, a couple years ago, or even 2 years ago, your average umbrella cost for a bed and breakfast was like $450. And so that's an extra $1 million of liability insurance for $450. It was great. It was cheap. Right now, it's closer to $1,700, almost $2,000. So as the market hardens, premiums go up, but you still have an exposure. The exposure doesn't go away. And really the biggest exposure for a bed and breakfast, by the way, is slip and fall. That's the claim that we see. We don't see any, for the most part, there's a certain type of person that comes to a bed and breakfast, which is to your advantage, by the way. And I'm sure a lot of you have a relationship with your customers. So fortunately, what happens is, and Laura, you probably know this, it might have even happened to you. You might have a guest that comes to year after year, and gosh forbid, maybe he or she slipped, walking into the building. Well, you know them, and you're going to help them up, and maybe you have a laugh about it, and the claim doesn't turn into a claim. Maybe they hurt their wrist, and you send them to urgent care, and everything's fine. That's great, and that's what makes B&Bs unique. And this is the argument that John and I do a really good job with approaching the insurance companies with and saying, look, bed and breakfast owners are also a different breed, but so are their customers. And oftentimes there's a relationship here where claims aren't as frequent. And I can tell you that because I've been doing this for a very long time. I don't have a lot of claims with B&Bs. So what we do is we do a really good job of building your narrative. We tell the story of who Lori is, who Marie is, who Sally is to the insurance company, because the insurance companies can be cold, they're actuaries, so it's our job, it's your agent's job to really make you come to life. And the more they can understand who you are, and we do pre-inspections of your building, we take pictures and we show the exposures, we really gain a lot of leverage with the insurance companies. So there's a lot of value in becoming advantageous to an insurance company. So John, let's go to the what can you do now that the market hardens. So really I want to zero in on be prepared to know and explain your loss history. This is probably the biggest one right now. And so when you go to shop your insurance, insurance companies are going to print out for you what your claims were. It's going to show maybe you had a small wind claim, maybe you had a slip and fall in 2017. There's going to be a little bit of a list, hopefully not a big list. But what I like to remind my clients is to write down what happened with the claim. So in other words, what an insurance company is going to do, they're going to have a date of loss, a brief description of what happened, and what was paid out. That's a very kind of cold way to look at claims. Now, you guys as business owners, you know the detail of the claim. So what I remind innkeepers is, and really all businesses is to have a story about the claim, like what happened. Did the insurance company fight it? Did they not? Did they just pay it? Did the person slip and fall? And do you think that they faked something? Put all that down, make the claim come to life. That way, if an underwriter reads it, it's like, oh, all right, I have more information here. So that's a big one. So if you have a loss, write down what happened, take pictures, get as detailed as possible. That way, in the event that you're shopping your insurance and they're trying to whack you over the head for because you've had some losses, a lot of times there's more to the story. Investing in loss control and safety measures make a risk more attractive to underwriters. Now, this is something that John and I spend a lot of time with. And it's called loss control. So it's about looking at your property through the lens of how do I mitigate losses? How do I prevent losses from happening? Do I add a railing here? Do I add some grip tape on my steps? How do you handle snow? Are you investing in a snow contractor or are you doing it yourself? There's a lot of things you can do at your property from a risk management standpoint. And if the insurance company knows you're looking at things through the lens of safety, well, of course, it helps our game when we're trying to leverage your premiums. So it's invest in loss control. What does that mean? It means ask your agent to come out and give you a loss control survey, and they can do that. Meaning they're going to survey your property. They should tell you exactly what to look out for. And believe me, you might not like some of the answers, but you don't have to do a lot of these things, but understand the more that you do to protect your property, the better chance your agent or us are going to have in marketing your insurance. All right, John, let's
You know
go
what,
to the summary.
Mike, you know what little loss control I like?
What do you like?
There's a gadget that you can put in near your hot water heater or in a basement where you might get a little water during heavy rain. It hits you up on your cell phone when there's water somewhere where you don't want it. And it's very simple. That's
Oh,
loss
yeah.
control.
It is.
And now you're going in there and you could stop a $20,000 claim by just knowing this thing is occurring once a year, or, once every 6 years. I love that little gadget. That's loss control.
Mm-hmm.
I'm sorry, what is that little gadget?
It's a water detector that can link to your phone. I can look up the name for you and get it over to you. And so if you have water somewhere where you don't want it, it will notify you so you can get to work to stop a loss from occurring.
That'd be great. Thank you.
You're welcome.
So before we wrap up, guys, does anyone have any questions or want to throw anything at us here? Or did we hit you with too much? Did you walk away with something?
Very informative.
Oh, I
Yeah.
appreciate that.
Yes, very
Very-
informative.
Well, thank you, guys. And so again, hopefully you have an understanding. I'm sorry, who's someone talking? No? Hopefully you have a little bit more understanding of, what's driving your insurance cost, in particular, your replacement cost limit. You have a little understanding of what coinsurance is, and really also have a baseline understanding of how insurance companies look at things and really how they make their money. And so remember, what is insurance? You agree to pay a small certain fee to an insurance company today in exchange for a guarantee from the company that it will bear the burden of a large but uncertain loss in the future. The basic goal behind buying any insurance is to make you financially whole following a loss. So we hope we've given you some insight into choosing the correct insurance limits and protect your bed and breakfast. And so here's my contact information. And I wanted to add, if you guys want to write this down, be more than happy to take calls on my cell phone. My cell phone number is 609-364-9727. That the main number, you're going to get my extension, and you're going to get our lovely Tammy. She's terrific, and she'll forward you over to me. However, if you have a brief question, or if you even want to text me, or I do this all day. I'll take a call on the weekends or at night. So if something pops in your head, feel free to shoot me a text or call me. Again, we want to be there for you. And Rose, I didn't even get a chance to thank you. We've been a partner with you for so long now, and we really appreciate the forum that you've set up today, the opportunity. Rose and I were talking that hopefully we're going to do an in-person, meeting at the next convention. Which, Rose, when did you say that might be? November?
It's tentatively scheduled for November 8th to the 10th at the Wyndham Garden in State College. We're going to make that final decision in July, once we see if mitigation orders have been lifted and it's safe. And I want to
Oh.
thank you, Michael, and John, for, yes, you've been a partner with PABI since at least 5 years, 6 years, if
Yep,
not
about
longer.
that.
So you've been kind of with us from the start of our inception when we formed in 2012. And we appreciate your support.
So hopefully we'll get a chance to see each other in person. And again, guys, anything that pops up in your head, give me a call or shoot me a text. I want to be there for you as a resource. And thanks so much. Happy St. Patrick's Day. I know Blanche is mad that I'm not wearing green, but green kind of washes me out a little bit. So I think pink makes me come alive a little. So
It does. It does.
Alrighty,
Sally, I'll get that over to you and I'll send it to Rose too, in case anybody else wants to take a look at that water device.
that'd be great.
Thank you, guys.
All right,
You're
Thank
welcome. Thank you
you.
for your time.
Have a
Thank
great
see
you,
day.
everybody. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.